All right, happy Tuesday. First trading day of the month here. Starting off with NQ. Now, let's rewind a bit to what we discussed on Friday. So Friday, we had that daily time frame close right near that 19,700 area that continues to be key area of resistance. Right? What I ideally wanted to see here was a break of that 700 area that maybe offered some sort of retest to trade up into some of these upper areas of resistance, that 850 area, maybe even that 20K area. Now, what we see actually happened here is that 700 area just rejected again. Right? This is why we don't want to anticipate any market moves. We just wait for exactly what price wants to do. We wait for confirmation, and that gives us, as always, the easiest play. So 700 rejects, and as we have been discussing over the past couple of weeks, price continues to trade within that near-term downtrend, right? Series of lower highs here. Now you do have some equal highs through here, right? But price never really showing any sustained change in character. Again, Friday and leading into Friday last week, we had a focus right through here on that 700 area, wanting to see can buyers break that 700 area. In this case, once again, a rejection of the 700. So we have an open right near this 19,500 level of interest, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah, right there near that 500. Or maybe it was the 450. But regardless, opening in that the middle of this kind of near-term range here. And so as always, anytime you have price rejecting a near-term range high or an intermediate term range high, where is it most likely going to trade? In most cases, it's most likely going to trade into that range low, right? Now, there will be isolated scenarios where you do have kind of that mid-range bounce, and that's what I wanted to see if buyers could establish this morning. Now, pretty much right off the open, we had the answer to that question, and it was no. So in that case, you want to be either looking for shorts or at the very least incredibly cautious with any longs, making sure you're getting involved in the right areas with the right market structure, with the right setups, so you don't just get absolutely steamrolled. These are the type of sessions that if you're offsides with poor trade location or subpar setups, you're just going to get run over. I mean, this tends to be the norm on any directional trend day, be it higher or lower. If you're trying to fade that move, maybe in for a rough time. That's pretty much what we saw today. There were a couple of isolated, decent setups to the long side, but broadly speaking, this was a day to be looking for those shorts, especially once we started to see that 450 area failing and then that 335 area failing. Now, one of the things I had mentioned this morning on the live stream was once that 335 area failed, it was a long way down into that 150 level of interest. And that 150, again, you'll see it from that Wednesday, August 28th low right through there. We also have that prior structure right through here, right? So price continues to trade quite technically, respecting that intermediate term structure. As far as what I'll be looking at for tomorrow, I primarily want to see how is price going to be responding to this 19K area and today's session low. We do have a pretty significant bounce versus that 900 level. But I don't have a level down there. Really what I want to see is a test of that 750 area. 750 or reclaim of this 19K to then show a partial retracement of today's move on NQ. So sellers definitely showing their continued strength here with the current structure. We're just looking for any area where buyers may start to step in. But as of right now, that daily time frame chart just continues to point down, right? Just pointing down. So ideal scenario, like I had mentioned on Friday, again, for me, for what I like to see, we had looked at QQQ. I wanted to see that push up and through Friday's high, to give a test of that daily volume point of control. But again, like I said, this is why expectation management is absolutely key. We want to be adjusting based on what price is actually showing us, not trading, something that simply is not there. And that was definitely the case today. And the market will constantly remind us of these scenarios. So it's okay to have those expectations, but just make sure you're fluid with how you're actually trading and positioning, and not being too rigid with, setups like this. Like, to me, looking for that push up through the highs does not actually materialize. What are we going to do if this fails? Well, we want to be staying patient, waiting for good trade location. And again, this is always, the commentary and what I'm saying right now is always through the lens of my own trading, which is focused on long setups. So zooming out, taking a look at the daily setup here on QQQ, we do see that gap has now been filled. Again, going back to Friday's session recap, I talked about the importance of this area of support right through here. That unfilled gap is now filled. So we'll see if buyers have any interest versus this 460, 462 area on QQQ. And again, on NQ, that's your 19K right through here. So weekly profile from a couple of weeks ago, that looks like August 12th into August 19th, August 18th, August 16th area. Again, the blue lines on my chart are the weekly profile. As of right now, daily pointing lower. The one concern that I'm going to be thinking about as we get into mid and late September is a seasonally weak period, especially the back half of September. And so if price really starts to show a lower high right here, like we have with today's very bearish daily bar, they can get much uglier, right? I wouldn't rule out like a retest down into this area. So these are some things to be keeping an eye on and to be thinking about with this higher time frame setup. Remember how fast price made this move. So with that, it'll leave behind a lot of volume voids, and it can fill kind of the backside of that just as quickly, right? So just thinking out loud, as far as tomorrow's session, to keep it simple, I'll primarily be focused on that reaction right at 19K. Now let's jump over to ES. Now S&P has been showing relative strength versus NQ. We had this near-term range. And I do like this setup for visualizing what I was just talking about, with price kind of rejecting that near-term range high. Again, I wanted to see the breakout there. That's the scenario that I was more interested in trading, as I discussed on Friday. But we come into today's sesh with price rejecting the intermediate term and near-term range high. So with an open right at a mid-range reference point, what is the likelihood that buyers can actually, show some type of reversal here? There's definitely a decent chance of that, but typically, the entire spread of the range is going to trade. And if you caught Friday's trading mentorship group, this is exactly what I was talking about with trade location. Where is price coming from? And then what sequence are we in as far as which side has been respected most recently? In this case, you have the rejection. So most likely price is going to trade down into the near-term range low. Now, in this case, buyers did not step in versus that near-term range low. What we have is a higher time frame breakdown. Here was that support zone right through here. Case could be made for 55.85 as well as 55.65. I tend to treat these areas just like a larger zone. So wanting to see how those higher time frame candles materialize in those areas. Now, if you look at the actual intraday, you'll see some wicks here. So there's definitely clearly some buying attempts there, but those buyers just get run over, right? Sellers continue to push price is lower down into 55.40, and then even a much larger washout down into that 55.16. Now, I do want to see if we're actually into that unfilled gap. Yeah, so we're not quite into that gap yet. So this is kind of going to be an important clue for tomorrow's session here. If you are going to be trading ES, whether it be ES directly or you're looking at SPY or something like that, but buyers are going to be very interested in defending this area right through here as support, because as we know, if price continues to push down into that gap, most likely what you're going to see is a gap fill down into 54.85. So what I'll be looking at for tomorrow, depending on how active that overnight session is how price is trading versus this 55.40 area, and specifically this low from August 15th. What is that? That's 55.26. So pretty much just putting essentially a zone like right through here, just so we have that visual there on the chart, kind of know how price is going to be responding to that zone. And again, buyers are going to be very interested in seeing this area continue to hold. And if they are successful, most likely what we'll see is we'll end up seeing essentially this become the new range, right? A little bit of range expansion with today's move. But if we do end up with that bounce tomorrow, I'll just call this range expansion, and the 55.85 will become a mid-range reference point rather than that prior area of support. So whether or not the gap holds for tomorrow is going to be that main level on watch, 55.40 for ES, 19K for NQ. Hope you guys had a great sesh. Definitely a slower session on my end, focusing on the longs. Took a stop in NQ near that 19,335 area, but recovered pretty nicely with a couple of bounces at 19,150. If you guys have questions about anything, feel free to shoot me a direct message. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning. We will be doing the live stream again, so I'll catch you there. Take care. Have a good afternoon.